Torah guardian, speaking the absolute truth. Torah nation.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Mishpokah. Yasharal, Yahudah, grafted in Gentiles into the body of Hamashiach. Listen, it's the Shabbat. We, the people of the book, broadcast. It's going down. Every Shabbat we come with the word of the Besorah of truth. The mandate of Yahuah is to wake up Yasharal and Yahudah, to wake up Yaakov. Listen, his people, his firstborn son. Listen. We are a people that Yahuah has called from the foundations of the earth to keep his Shabbat. He says it in Jasher, the 2nd chapter, the 19th verse, how Yahusha has set apart the angels. These angels had the responsibility of supervising the Shabbat and the Shamayim and the Eretz. And he chose a people from amongst the people who would go forth with these oracles, with these truths, this Shabbat, and establish it. That's Yaakov, his firstborn. Yahuah, in the name of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, I pray that your word will go forth today in Ruach and in truth. Take the reins of my lips and the reins of my tongue and reign. Wake up, Yaakov. Wake up, Yahudah. Cause me not to cause anyone to stumble, anyone to be turned out of the way, anyone to come up lame. Yahuah, this is about the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. Yahuah, you have sent Yahusha, the kinsman redeemer, to wake us up and bring us out of this slavery, this slave mentality. Yahuah, you have called us to be restored in the name of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, in the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. Yahuah, I pray that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, that your people would receive your word. Yahuah, I submit myself to you and this, your people. And I praise you in the name of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. Listen, we're listening to Hezekiah, right? Song is titled Slavery. Listen, Yahuah has delivered us from the slave mentality. We who have received the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach are established in this witness, and we have been freed from sin, the slavery of sin. Listen, we're established as sons and daughters now in Hamashiach Yahusha. Slavery. I don't own the rights to this music. Hezekiah. Listen, Yahuah has established us as his people. We got to live up to that. We got to live up to that. We got to live up to that. Listen, man of the hour woman, y'all, we going in. We going in. I gotta yell at my dog. Kadar! Go there now! Even before I get started, she gets started. It's a Shabbat, though. And I praise Yahuah for the Shabbat. Listen, I just finished the Zoom with the people of the Besorah, and I've been accustomed to doing the Shabbat lesson before I did the Zoom. But I did the Zoom because we moved the Zoom up to 11 o'clock, and, I end up doing the Zoom first before I actually get to do the Shabbat lesson. But, for me, it's all good because I love Yahuah's word. I'm the redeemed of Yahuah. Listen. And he has a word all the time. Now, we've been in Romans. And we're just going to pick up where we left off in Romans. And we're in Romans, the 4th chapter now, right? And the thing we need to understand is that Yahuah has established his Yeshua for circumcision and uncircumcision alike. And listen, if you're a brew and you got a problem with the Gentiles receiving Yeshua, yeah, good luck with being in the kingdom of Yahuah. Because you're going to need it. Yeah, because if you are Hebrew to believe that you can turn to Yahuah, right, without an offering, right, just because you repent, you still got to have a sacrifice. If you believe that you can get this done and have a right to suggest that these other nations, these people, right, who have received the witness, right, of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, never having the Torah, but received the witness in Emunah and recognize that their elves can't do anything for them. They have to receive the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach and be established in his kingdom and have the Torah written in their hearts. Bro, if you want to sit back and you want to think that Yahuah don't care about nobody but you, and you haven't even turned, you are yet in your sins, listen, you ain't going into the kingdom. Yeah, I said it. You are not going into the kingdom. You can't be circumcised alone. You can't be Yahudim alone. Only Yah, only Tanakh Torah only. You can't be this and expect it to enter the kingdom of you. Right? And listen, the truth be told, you ain't even his children. Listen. You are under a covenant of circumcision, right? That is valid only in Yahusha Ha'Mashiach's witness. Because that covenant alone is not going to establish you. With that covenant and a Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, you are the people of Yahuah. You are the people that he's going to return to his land, your land, right? Because you have the covenant of Avraham and you have the covenant of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. You have circumcision in the flesh and you have circumcision of the heart. You established. Listen, that's why, I tell you and I tell you again, listen, I know I'm Hebrew. Listen, I was circumcised on the 8th day. I believe it was the 8th day. Because back then, when they circumcised you, they had scheduled at a certain time. I think my parents had me circumcised. 8th day, right? So, not only that, I realized through my culture and through the revelation of the Torah that I am Yahudim, right? Yeah, I did my DNA. Yeah, I did it. I didn't do it with African ancestry, but I think I'm going to do it with African ancestry too. But I did Ancestry.com, My True Ancestry, and I did one called Nubians or Nubal Genetics, right? Just did it, and found where my ancestors were. Yeah, I'm Yahudim. Yeah. I was in Spain and Portugal. Yeah, DNA. I know who I am, right? But not only that, I've received the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. See, now, I could truly say that I am a son of Yahuah and Elohiym. I could truly say that I'm a Hebrew of Hebrews. Yeah, see, I could truly say that I am of a tribe of Yahudah. I can bear this witness. For as many as received him, to them gave he power to be the sons of Elohiym. I'm a son of Elohiym. Yahusha, my kinsman redeemer, has given me his Ruach. The Ruach that's the Father and the Son in me. I can go forth and redeem my brethren. Not with my own blood. Come on, don't get it twisted. Right? I can point them to Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. It's witness. And they got to receive it in Emunah, just like I received it in Emunah. But if Yahuah has called them, they're going to receive it and they're going to be established in it. It's witness. It comes through faith in Yahusha Ha'Mashiach's witness. I'm Hebrew. I'm of the tribe of Yahudah. I'm established in this witness. Yeah, I gotta get a clue, bro. Romans. We in Romans, the 4th chapter. Right? And He is going to begin to establish the correlation of faith and the patriarchs and the witnesses, right? And how this Yeshua that is in Hamashiach is a Yeshua of faith. See now, Hebrew, you have to understand, right? Yahuah gave you ancestors, and they're examples of faith. Right? He gave you the patriarch Avraham, who believed Yahuah, right? Believed the word of Yahuah, had Emunah in what Yahuah said. Yahuah told him, look, get thee up out of here and go to a land which I have promised you and your ancestors. And, Avraham got up and went. He received the word from Yahuah. He obeyed the word and went. Not only that, remember Avraham gets it. Listen, Avraham, I'm going to make your seeds as the stars in the sky, sands of the sea. Listen. Abraham believed you. 30 years later, he made a promise to Abraham when he was 70. 30 years later, Abraham was 100 years old. Sarah was 100 years old. She gave birth to Yitzhak, who kept his promise. Abraham's name is Avraham. It was Abram, and it went to Avraham, which means the father of many nations. So every time someone called him, they were literally saying, "Hey, father of many nations. Hey, father of many nations. Hey, father of many nations. Hey, father of many nations." 30 years later, he became the father of many nations. From one man's seed. Yaakov. Yitzhak. Yaakov. Yahuah chosen. Yaakov wrote his name in the Shamayim. Oh yeah, wrote his name in the Shamayim. That's in Jubilees 2:21. Wrote his name in the Shamayim. He believed Yahuah. Didn't have any evidence. He looked for a city whose foundation and builder was Yahuah. Wandering in tents, tabernacles, with Yaakov and Yitzhak. He believed Yahuah. He staggered not at the promises through unbelief. Hebrew, your ancestors. Sarah, she was 100 years old. Her womb was dead. And she believed Yahuah. And when she gave birth, she rejoiced. As a mother giving suck to a child at 100 years old. You don't hear me. Listen, by the same Emunah, when Abraham was told by Yahuah to go and offer up Yitzhak as an offering, he did exactly what Yahuah told him to do. Took 2 of his servants and his boy, the lad. And they went up to the mountain that Yahuah had told them. I think it's Mount Moriah. One of the mountains. And he went in obedience. Prepared his son for the sacrifice. Put him on the altar. Got ready to thrust the sword into his. And then the Malachim said, "Hey, pump the brakes. Stop, Avraham. Yahuah knows that you believe. He knows that you have Emunah. Faith. Being firm, securely fixed on what Yahuah says or what Yahusha says. Yahuah says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments as I have loved the Father and kept his commandments. You keep my word. Right? Emunah. Knowing that if Yahuah said something, Yahuah's going to do it. If Yahuah's decreed a thing, it's going to happen. Make no mistake about it. Yahuah's word is sure. It's established as it is spoken. It will be brought to pass because it's his word. You have to receive this witness in Emunah. See, your fathers, they saw the priest. They had the sheep. They knew of the tabernacle. They knew the priest had to go in once a year. They knew that they could count on that. They knew that if they were called by his name and they would humble themselves and pray and seek his face and turn, that they would follow the process of turning, going to the high priest with the sacrificial offering. And the high priest who had sacrificially prepared himself through ceremonial washings and a sacrifice on his behalf of his own sin. He went into the holies of holies with the blood that was from their animal, sprinkled it on the altar. Yahuah was manifested presence was in there. Not Yahuah, but his glory. Yahuah has proved it. Yahuah established it. Consider that righteous. But what you gonna do now, bro? You need a Yeshua through Emunah. And Yahuah's going to require you to have it in Yahusha, just like Moshe had it in him. Avraham had it in him. Avraham had it in him. Everybody that ever done anything for Yahuah or have heard or received a word from Yahuah and did it, they did it in Emunah because they had to believe it. Romans, the 4th chapter, beginning at the first verse. What shall we say then? Right now, if we go back to the 3rd chapter, right? 3rd chapter, we finish off with how we are justified through faith in the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach and not the Torah. Right? So, to say that you were established in the Torah only, the Tanakh only, and Yah only, you're not established. It's not the reality. It's not the reality. You're not established. It's not the reality, right? See, because you have to understand that the righteousness of Elohiym is by faith in Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. It's not in the Torah. It's not in keeping Torah. Right? Torah is the revealer of sin. Torah does not justify. Torah is not the offering. Torah does not justify. There has to be a method. There has to be blood. Without the shedding of blood, there's no forgiveness of sin. The law revealed your sin. The law was Yahuwah's word. Yahuwah's word was violated. The violation of Yahuwah's word is sin. Ask Adam and Havah. Yahuwah gave him a word. You can eat of all the trees that's in the midst of the garden, but it's this one tree. It's one tree that is of the knowledge of good and evil that's in the midst of the garden. Don't even eat it, touch it. Don't even handle it. Because in the day that you do, you're going to surely die. In the day that you eat of this, you are going to violate my Torah. And the glory that you have is going to be lost. You're going to relinquish, right, your glory. You're going to relinquish, right, the garden. You're going to relinquish. You're going to surrender your dominion. And we know they did. But faith in Hamashiach's witness is the only thing that's going to restore you. See, because listen, at the end of the day, he says in Romans the 3rd chapter, 23rd verse, concerning everybody. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Now listen, in the Christian church, they use this all the time, as an excuse or a method to support the idea that, you're going to always sin. You're going to always sin, and you're going to always need Yahusha's grace to forgive you, right? When Yahuah went into the holies of holies once and for all to eradicate sin. Yahusha went into the holies of holies with his blood, a sinless, spotless lamb, with his own blood before Yahuah in the Shamayim, in the holies of holies, having Yahuah says, I'm pleased with it, once and for all, a sacrifice given, provided, that washed you, cleansed you from all unrighteousness, and established you in this witness, right? And gave you his Ruach HaKodesh. If you've asked for it, you should ask for it. But he's given you his Ruach HaKodesh, which establishes you in this witness. It gives you the power and the ability to keep his Torah. The Torah now becomes written in your heart. The Torah now becomes written in your heart. See, you aren't just until you receive the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, right? For all have sinned and come short of the glory of Yahuah, but being justified freely by the grace of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. Now, that's not suggesting that just because Yahusha Ha'Mashiach has provided this grace is something that you should take and exploit. As if you should continue in sin just because you have grace. Or that because you've received the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, right, you are now able to do whatever you want. Wrong answer. No, doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. You're justified through the blood of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach once and for all. We are now experienced the rebirth. We have now understood what it means when Yahusha told Nicodemus in 3 and 5, I think it's 3 and 5, you must be born again of the water and of the Ruach HaKodesh. You understand what it means now? We live a new life because of a rebirth. He says, listen, whom Elohiym has set forth to be a propitiation, Yahusha has become a mediator. A mediator. Yahusha is the mediator of a better covenant. Yahusha is the one that has gone between Yaakov, Yahuwah's firstborn son, and Yahuah. Hebrews 9 and 19. For when Moshe had spoken every precept to all the people according to the Torah, he took the blood of calves and of goats and water and scarlet and hyssop and sprinkled the book and all the people. Moshe did, right? Moshe saying, this is the blood of the testament of Elohiym, which he hath enjoined unto you. The blood that had to be sprinkled upon you in order to have your sins forgiven, in order for you to have turned from your sins. And almost all things are pure with blood, but without the shedding of blood, there's no remission of sin. So Yahusha's blood became the necessary element as the lamb to be sprinkled on you, for you, on your behalf that you have to receive an Emunah. It was therefore necessary that the pattern of things in the ROMAIYM should be purified with these. See, bro, the pattern of the priest, the pattern of the lamb that you take to the priest, the pattern of the blood that is shed, that was sprinkled on your behalf by the priest, shadow, has to occur in order for you to return to Yahuah. It was necessary that the pattern of things in that ROMAIYM should be purified with these. But the heavenly things themselves are sanctified than these, are better sanctified than these. Listen, bro. Listen. Yahusha is in the volume of the book. You must understand that Yahuah has sanctified his people. He has sprinkled his people. He has established his people. Yahuah. He's justified us through the blood of Yahusha. Through this covenant, this commandment, this established order, through faith in Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. And not just to us only, but to the Gentiles. You have to understand that therefore we conclude that a man is justified with Emunah, without the deeds of the law. You can't establish yourself in this witness apart from Yahusha. You can't even claim to be the sons and the daughters of Yahusha without having returned and having been established in Emunah, in firmness and securely fitted in the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. You can't do it. It requires Emunah. For he is Elohiym, for he, the Elohiym of the Yahudim only? Is he not also of the Gentiles? Yes, of the Gentiles also. Right? Seeing it is one Yahuah, which shall justify the uncircumcision and the circumcision in Emunah. Because it's not just enough to be circumcised. It's not enough to be Hebrew. It's not enough to be awakened to know that you're the people. It's not enough to even go over to the continent, to the land. You have to receive the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach and Emunah. Do we then make void the Torah? Do we make void the Torah? Do we make void the Torah? Is Torah done away with? Does the Torah cease to exist? Elohiym forbid. Do we make void the law through Emunah, through the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, through faith in Yahusha Ha'Mashiach? No. If the truth be told, we establish the Torah. Because we have the capacity to live the Torah out because we have the Torah written in our hearts, because we have Yahusha and Yahuah in us. We are his. He is in us. Let's get that 4th chapter. Gotta go on, gotta keep it moving. What shall we say then that Avraham, our father, as pertaining to the flesh, hath found? What can we find out about Avraham yet in the flesh? Right? For if Avraham was justified by works, right, he have wherefore the glory, right? But not before Elohiym. So what is he saying? Listen, if Avraham was to be justified by what he did, right, what he did only. For if Avraham was justified by works, right? What are works? What is he referring to? Right? The things that he done, the deeds that he did, right? That Greek word is
Strong's G 2041. Ergon.
If Avraham, right? If Avraham, what shall we say then? That Avraham, our father, as pertaining to the flesh, has found. If Avraham were justified by works, he haveth to glory, right? But not before Elohiym. See, because it's not in the works. It is in the Emunah. See, because the Emunah works, as it pertains to Yahuwah's word, always. Emunah in Yahuwah's word has to be at work always in order for it to work. You have to believe, you have to be firm, you have to be securely fixed on Yahuwah's word. Right? He says, for if Avraham, the father of many nations, were justified by works, he have to glory, but not before Elohiym. You can glory, but not before Yahuwah, because what's going to cause Yahuwah glory is having believed in what he said. Now, Avraham, based on what he believed Yahuwah said, left his father and went into a land. Avraham, after he believed what Yahuwah said, right, believed that he would be the father of many nations. Though he was not the father of many nations yet, he believed. Though Abraham didn't receive the promise of being in the land yet, he believed. He gloried in what Yahuwah said. For what saith the scriptures? Avraham had Emunah in Elohiym, and it was counted unto him as righteousness. Because, see, righteousness is achieved or established as a result of having Emunah in what Yahuwah says. Yahushua said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments as I've kept the Father's commandments. I love the Father and keep his commandments. Obedience to what Yahuwah says, listening, hearing, believing what Yahuwah says results in obedience. In obeying his word brings righteousness. Right? He says, for what the scripture saith, Avraham believed Yahuwah. Avraham had Emunah in what Yahuwah has said. Right? And the fact that he believed Yahuwah considered it righteousness. He says, now to him that worketh is the reward reckoned of grace or of debt. Right? Now to him that works, right, who believes, is the reward not reckoned of grace, but of debt. So if you do what you do, right, your outcome has everything to do with the service that you provided. It is what you received as payment. Right? Abraham's payment was that Yahuah considered him righteous because he believed the word. If Abraham's reward was what he received because of what he did, then all he received was a payment for what he did. Avraham believed Yahuwah's word. That word, that Emunah that he had in what Yahuwah said, had established him in Yahuwah. Because Abraham, he looked for a city whose builder and maker was Elohiym. He never received the city. But he looked for it, right? He believed Yahuwah that it was going to happen. Avraham knew that he was going to be the father of many nations, right? Avraham seen was Isaac, and he seen the children from his other wives, right? The wives and his concubine that his wife gave to him, right? Ishmael, right? Right? Yaakov, right? Avraham had Isaac, right? He had Ishmael from Hagar. Yahuwah made a promise to Avraham that his seed, the promised seed, Avraham believed what Yahuwah said. Avraham caught a glimpse of what Yahuwah has said in a vision. As Yahuwah had revealed to him what was going to happen to his seed because they disobeyed Yahuwah's Torah. He saw us. Listen. But to him that worketh not, but believeth on him that justifies, the ungodly through faith is counted as righteousness. See, righteousness in the word has everything to do with you believing Yahuwah. In order to be established as sons and daughters of Yahuwah, you have to believe the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. You have to believe it in Emunah. Right? You have to believe it. I have to believe it. I have to believe it. There was nothing that I could do other than believe it. And what I did was responded to what I believed. But anything that I do that is not based on the belief of Yahuwah's word and brings forth a result, the payment is a result. It's not necessarily anything to do with the Emunah that's attached to Yahusha or the Emunah that's attached to his word. Listen. But to him that worketh not, but believes on him that justifies. Right? Now again, Paul is dealing with these Hebrews that are still so much connected to the Torah, these Hebrews and these Gentiles that were in Rome. He's still addressing the idea of circumcision and the law and the Torah with these people who understand the faith of Avraham and who understand the works of the law. Right? Right? See, the original covenant required us to obey the law. Works. The wages that obedience to the law paid were in the form of the blessings. Right? Right? If they would obey the Torah, right, then they would get the blessings. Right? They obey the law, they would get the blessings of the law. Right? They did something, they would receive something. The law. That's what the law did. It revealed sin, right? When you violated it, you have to have a sacrifice and offering. You had to be restored. But once you kept that law paid wages. Came with promises. Came with blessings. Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 15 are the blessings that come from the work of you doing the law. But to him that worketh not, the Gentiles, because they didn't have a law. Right? But they believed on him that justified. They believed on Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. Right? His faith is counted as righteousness. See, you are so, as Yahudim, caught up with the idea of keeping the Torah in order to be blessed. Believing that the law in and of itself and the blessings of itself justifies. Well, you just got the consequences. You got what Yahuah said concerning the Torah. But that's not what justifies you. Obedience to Torah, right? Obedience to Torah is Yahuwah's example of works. If you did what the Torah said, then the outcome of that is the works. The reward, the blessings, right? But if you don't have a Torah, right? You don't have a law. Gentiles didn't have a law, right? They didn't have it. But what they did have was Emunah and a word that was preached. And they, like the Hebrews, began to ask what they must do to receive this Yeshua. And when they were told and instructed by Shaul to believe on Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, be baptized, and receive the Ruach HaKodesh, they did it. Because they believed the word. The Besorah of truth. The witness of Yahusha, the avenger, the guardian of Yahuwah's Torah. They received that witness, and that witness brought to them Yeshua. Because they believed. They didn't have a law. It was counted for them as righteousness. Even as David also described the blessedness of the man unto whom Elohiym imputes righteousness without works. he didn't have to give me something to do in order for me to do it. All he had to do was say a word to me and I did it. It's imputed unto me as righteousness because I believe what he said. Blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. See, the law couldn't do that. Now, the sacrifices, once sprinkled upon the person, as Moshe and as Aaron had done in the Levitical law, covered their sin. And Yahuah considered them righteous because their sins were covered, because the blood was shed. Right? Even as David also described the blessedness of the man unto whom Elohiym imputes righteousness without works. See, the Yahudim were convinced that their works was what Yahuah received and established them as righteous. But the opposite was actually true. Yahuah was more concerned on that you believe what he said. Yahuah was Yahuah was well pleased with the Emunah and what his word said. Right? Even Dawid also described the blessedness of a man to whom Yahuah imputes righteousness without works. Right? Blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. They believe in Yahuah's ability to do a thing without ever having had the thing done. I think that's right. They believed in Yahuah's capabilities. They believed in what Yahuah's word says. Yahuah said that that's good enough for me. If Yahuah's word has declared it, it's a lock. If Yahuah's word says it, then it's sure. If Yahuah says a man's sins are forgiven, if he receives this witness, and he'll receive the Ruach HaKodesh as he receives his witness, and that man believes that, that man's Emunah is counted as righteousness. See, I believe Yahuah's word. I stand before you. I sit before you here. I'm before you on this YouTube right now because I believe Yahuah's word. Like Abraham, I just staggered not at what Yahuah said. If Yahuah said it was the absolute truth. I just staggered what he said through unbelief. I was strong in what he said. If he said it, that was it. That settles it. I was like, you said that I was supposed to receive the Ruach HaKodesh. It was to look like this. I believe you for the Ruach HaKodesh to look like this. And he gave it to me, just like that. Clothed in tongues of fire, sat on me as a young man in my room. Because I believed Yahuah. I believed Yahuah when Yahuah said, when Shlomo prayed the prayer, Yahuah, give unto me now wisdom that I might go out and come in before this people. Who can judge this great people's eye? Yahuah gave it to him. I believe Yahuah for the same thing. Yahuah, give me wisdom. Yahuah gave me wisdom. He gave me the Ruach HaKodesh, and I didn't even realize at the time it was the Ruach HaKodesh that was the wisdom that he gave me. I can remember being in classes talking to teachers, and teachers like, wow. This Ruach of counsel. Yahuwah's Ruach has been with me because I just believe his word. See, that's what Yahuwah really expects us to believe his word. Right? You got to receive his witness. You got to have Emunah. You got to be firm and fixed in Yahuwah's word. He says, blessed the man to whom Yahuah, Adonai, will not impute sin. Because of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach's witness. See, you have to believe that Yahuwah will remove your sin. You have to believe that in Emunah and this witness. You got to believe that Yahuwah, through Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, can remove your sin consciousness. You have to believe that Yahuwah is going to and can remove your sin consciousness. I don't sin. Yeah, I said it. I do not sin. Yahuwah has removed the desire of sin from me, the consciousness of sin. Blessed is the man to whom Adonai will not hold sin. What's that word, impute, in the Greek?
Strong's G 3049. Lagizamai.
Lagizamai, right? It means to reckon, to count, to calculate, to count over, to take into account, to make an account of. In Yahusha Ha'Mashiach's witness, I'm blessed because Yahuwah does not see sin. He does not count sin against me because I've received the witness. I've been established in him. The consciousness of sin has been removed from me. In Emunah. I have to believe that. I have to believe in the water. I have to believe in the blood. I have to believe in the Ruach HaKodesh. I got to believe in it. What you see in Christianity ain't this. Excuse me. That is a profane attempt to justify sin. Profane his name and justify sin. No, Yahuwah, through Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, has removed the consciousness of sin. I don't have a desire to sin. Sin is no longer reigning in my mortal body. Yahuwah does not hold sin against me because I've received the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. I have been cleansed. He says, listen, this blessedness then upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision only? For we say that faith, Emunah, was reckoned unto Avraham for righteousness' sake. It had nothing to do with the Torah. It had to do with his belief in what Yahuwah has said. Listen, you have to believe in the word of Yahuwah, the truth of Yahuwah, the Torah of true Yahuwah. But it's not the Torah of Yahuwah that's justifying you. It's your belief in what Yahuwah has said that justifies you. cometh this blessedness, this blessing upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision only? No, for we say that faith was reckoned to Avraham for righteousness. Avraham believed Yahuah. The Gentiles had to believe Yahuah, and so does the circumcision have to believe. Yahudim have to believe Yahuah. The Gentiles have to believe Yahuah just like Avraham believed Yahuah. He says, how was it then reckoned when he was in circumcision or uncircumcision? Not in circumcision, but in uncircumcision. So what we saying? Paul's still dealing with these brews, right? Abraham received the promise before he was circumcised. Yahuah called Avraham out from amongst his fathers before he was circumcised. He received the promise of Yahuah before he was circumcised. It was not until Yahuah told Avraham to circumcise himself and the rest of his families and everybody in his company to establish the nation of people who have received the order of circumcision as an established people. But he believed Yahuah before that ever happened. So had nothing to do with Avraham being circumcised, right? Or the covenant of circumcision per se. It had everything to do with him believing. Yeah, he circumcised his flesh. Yes, that was an example of something that he did that Yahuah told him to do. But listen, he received Yahuah's promise because he believed Yahuah before he was ever circumcised. Again, you got these Judaizers, these Hebrews that are just trying to just dissuade, to pull away, to try to make a people to believe something that's not the case. Avraham believed Yahuah, and it was counted unto him as righteousness. Avraham believed Yahuah Elohim's word. Avraham was established in what Yahuah had said. And he believed Yahuah before he was ever received the outward sign of circumcision. The outward sign of circumcision became a work of the flesh. It became something that was done to show that they were Yahuwah's people, that they were a people of a covenant, right? Right? But the idea is that before that was ever instituted, he believed Yahuah. The Gentiles believed Yahuah and had faith in Yahusha Ha'Mashiach and received Yeshua through their faith, their Emunah in what was preached. They received it. They became heirs. How was it then reckoned? When he was in circumcision? No. Or in uncircumcision? Yes. Right? Not in circumcision, but in uncircumcision. He believed you. When you were told to get up and go to a place, he got up and went. He believed Yahuah. He wasn't circumcised yet. He says, he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of faith. He received circumcision because Yahuah considered him faithful because he believed. Okay, I'm going to cut the covenant with you now. I gave you the word, you obeyed it. I'm going to cut the covenant with you now. I'm going to meet you at the Valley of Kings, and the high priest of Yahuah, the king of Salem, is going to come with you with bread and wine. I'll establish you. He received the sign of circumcision. I received the sign of circumcision. I ain't believe you. I ain't know you as a baby. But I'm still growing up as a Hebrew. Black. Negro. And then I began to read the Besorah and the Torah. Recognized there was something that I needed. I asked Yahuah for it and he gave it to me. I received the sign of circumcision, the seal of righteousness, of Emunah. Avraham received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of faith, which he had yet being uncircumcised. So the idea is that he relieved Yahuah. He wasn't even circumcised. Excuse me, I don't know where that's from. Right? So he received the witness. He received the witness of the word of Yahuah and obeyed it. He says, and he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of faith, which he had yet been uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all that believe. So he received it before he was circumcised. And then he was circumcised so that he may be the father of those who would believe. Though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed unto them also. So see, Yahuah circumcised Avraham, having received the promise. And Yahuah have given the uncircumcised Gentiles the same covenant in Emunah, yet not having received circumcision. Listen, you got to have a Ruach HaKodesh, man. I'm telling you. You got to receive this witness. You got to have the Ruach HaKodesh. You got to begin to see what Yahuah is doing, his plan, his work. Yahuah is no respected person. Yes, he has called Yaakov. Yes, Yaakov is written in the ROMAIYM. Yes. Oh, yes, he is written in the ROMAIYM. Yaakov. Yes. Excuse me. Yes. But Yahuah has sheep that are not of his fold. I'm glad I know who I am. I'm glad I know whose I am. I'm glad to have received this witness. I'm glad to know that Yahuah has a people. He has a people who are circumcised, and he has a people who are uncircumcised, who are yet circumcised. Who has a people who are circumcised and yet circumcised again. He has a people. These people have received his witness, the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach and Emunah. These people are established as kings and priests. Let's go. He says that he might be, verse 11, the father of all that believe. Because you got to understand now, Yahuah is interested in the people who believe him. You don't care who they are. He came to us first, of course, because he had established forever Yaakov as his. But even in Yaakov, he's only interested in those who believe. He's only interested in those who receive his witness. He's only interested in those who have Emunah in the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, that are of the nation, and those who have the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach that are of the other nation. That's all Yahuah is interested in. Listen, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed unto them also. Oh, listen, brew. Listen, you better get a Brew's clue. You better get a Blue's clue, because you ain't even of the nation unless you turn to Yahushua Ha'Mashiach. You are not of his people unless you receive the witness of Yahushua Ha'Mashiach. You know your heritage, but your heritage was given to you, so you know what you need to turn to in order to be a part of Yahuwah's family, in order to be a part of Yahuwah's kingdom, in order to be named amongst those who he has sanctified. He said, listen, for the promise that he should be the heir of the world, right? Avraham. Was not to Avraham or to his seed through the law. Brew, you better get a Brew's clues. Listen. You sitting up here trying to be justified by the Torah. For the promise, right, Yeshua, Shiloh, the scepter, not the pardon from Yahudah, the lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come. Shiloh, the gathering of the people to Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, right? The house of dominion, right? Yahusha. The promise that he should be the heir of the world, Avraham, was not to Avraham or to his seed through the law. Yah only. Torah and Tanakh only. He ain't even turned. You haven't even turned. You justified through the law. I'm keeping Torah. I know who I am, and I'm keeping Torah. What you doing about them sacrifices? What you doing about that high priest? What you doing about that high priest? What you talking about witness? What you doing about that high priest? What you doing about that sacrifice? What you doing about getting all the brews together to gather once a year so that we can make atonement for sin? What you doing about that, bro? Brew better get a bruised clue. He said, for the promise, Yeshua, Avrahim's promise, his seed, is Yeshua, their salvation. Yeshua. They went into captivity in Mitzrayim again. Yeshua. Yahuah is waking them up to Yeshua. They got to be restored. They got to return and receive Yeshua, the promise. For the promise that he should be the father of the world, the heir of the world, is not to Avraham or to his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of Emunah. Emunah in what? The Word. The Word made flesh. Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. That law of faith. Yahusha's Torah. The witness of Yahusha. Verse 14, for if they which are of the law be heirs, faith is void. Listen, this promise comes with being heirs of Yeshua and to receive an inheritance, which is land and prosperity, a place to call your own, you know, and that's just what this is about. But it doesn't come because of the Torah. He said, for if they which are of the law be heirs, faith is void. Listen, bro. If you're trying to teach that you have to keep the Torah, and the only way to be an heir of Yeshua is through keeping the Torah, then what you're saying is faith in Emunah and the witness in the blood of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach is void? For if they which are of the law, right? Now listen, don't get it twisted. This is not suggesting that you don't keep the law. This is suggesting that to be justified in the law apart from the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach is ridiculous. Right? Because the law does not justify. Right? And just because you hold the law in high regard, if you haven't received the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, the law can't save you. The father, Avraham, of circumcision. If they which are of the Torah be heirs of Yeshua. Now, we know the heir of Yeshua was the seed of Avraham and Emunah. Those who believe the witness, right? Right. For if they which are of the law be heirs, faith is made void and the promise of none effect. Because Paul is laying an argument to the Jew and the Gentile alike. Listen, Yeshua and the promise had nothing to do with the Torah. Right? It had to do with Emunah and the Yeshua of the promise. keeping Torah did not guarantee the promise. Keeping Torah, right, establishes you in obedience, right? But you have to have a sacrifice. You have to have the method to receive this Yeshua, and that method is Yahusha Ha'Mashiach's witness. He says, listen, for the promise that he should be the heir of the world was not to Avraham and his seed through the Torah. Yaakov, the Yeshua that Yahuah has promised us, it's not through the law. It's through faith in Hamashiach's witness. It's through the blood of the once and for all atoning Lamb of Yahuah. Yahusha that came to redeem his kinsmen, who shed his own blood. He died in place of them. He says, because the law worketh wrath, right? Because the law is going to bring judgment. If you don't keep the law, you're going to get judged. Everything that the law has said that you didn't do required judgment. And if that law was violated, there was a need for a sacrifice. And that sacrifice had to be offered to the high priest on behalf of whoever had committed the sin. Torah violation warranted a sacrifice. Because the law worketh wrath. See, the law is going to always bring judgment. Because you can't keep the law. You can't be established in the law. There's no longevity in the law apart from the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. Because the law worketh wrath, where no law is, there is no transgression. See, the law was designed to reveal your sin so you would know you need Yeshua. You need forgiveness. You need to be cleansed. You need to have your consciousness cleansed from sin. You need to have sin consciousness eliminated. Because the law worketh wrath. Yahuah said through Paul in the first chapter to the church in Rome. He says, where is it? He says, what's that about? For the wrath of Yahuah is revealed. Let me see. There? Oh, yeah. Verse 18 of first chapter. For the wrath of Elohiym is revealed from the Shamayim against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the Torah, the truth, in unrighteousness. I'll say that again. For the wrath of Elohiym is revealed in the Shamayim against all ungodliness, those who do opposite of God, of Elohiym, right? And all unrighteousness is disobedience right? Righteousness is obedience, right? The righteousness of men who hold the truth. The word, the Torah, is truth in unrighteousness, right? He said, because of that which is known of them is manifested in them, for Elohiym hath showed it unto them. Right, now listen. Let's go back to the 4th chapter, right? 4th chapter, right? 4th chapter, right? Where was we at? For the promise that he should be the heir of the world was not unto Avraham and seed through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. For if they which are of the law be heirs, faith is made void, right? And the promise of none effect, right? Because the law worketh wrath. Why does the law work wrath? Because you are not going to hold the truth of the Torah. The Torah is truth. When you do not keep Torah, there is wrath. When you don't keep Torah, there is a need for a sacrifice. The Torah in of itself is never going to establish you in righteousness. You have to be established in righteousness through Emunah in what Yahusha has said. Be cleansed from your sin consciousness, receive the Ruach HaKodesh on the inside of you, and have your heart anew, so that now that the Torah can be in you, in your heart, and you will be established in righteousness forever. The law worketh wrath. There's no way that you can be Torah only and Tanakh only and Yah only, because it works wrath. Your Torah only is going to require the need for a sacrifice because you are not going to keep the Torah. Apart from the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, you do not have the capability or the capacity to live free from sin. And because you are going to sin, right, you got to have a sacrifice, right? That sacrifice is going to be used, that blood is going to be sprinkled, right, to cover you and to make atonement, right? And that atonement is going to bring you before Yahuah. Your flesh is going to be considered righteous again up until you violate Torah, of which time you are going to need another sacrifice. That's why in this Torah you could never be established. You will never have Yeshua in the law alone. He says, listen, verse 16. For it is of Emunah, that it might be of grace. You got to believe that Yahuah is Yeshua through Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, his son, right? You have to believe that grace. To the end, the promise. You got to believe it to the end, the promise. You got to release your faith in Yahusha Ha'Mashiach to the end of the promise, right? He says, listen, therefore it is of faith that it might be of grace, to the end the promise might be sure to all the seed, right? Not to that only which is of the law, right? But to that also which is of the faith of Avraham. Now listen. All the seed, right? That's everyone who received the witness. Right. This witness of Emunah is to all who receives the witness. This witness of Emunah is for all who receive the witness, that which is of Avraham. Right? Now, Paul says that it's inclusive of those that are before Avraham was circumcised, right? Which would make them of Avraham as well before he was circumcised, right? So the idea is that therefore it is of Emunah that it might be of grace. It is of the belief in the Besorah of truth concerning Yahusha Ha'Mashiach's witness, to the end that the promise might be sure to all the seed, not to that only which is of the law, right? But also that which is of the faith of Avraham, who is the father of us all, right? So, listen, literally, Abraham's witness of Emunah is indicative of everyone who believes in the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. They are Abraham's seed. They may not be his seed as in literal seed, but they're considered seed even because they've received Abraham's witness, and they received the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach in the same Emunah fashion as Abraham believed the witness of Yahuah that he would be the father of many nations, to the point where he was circumcised. Still Abraham's seed if you understand what he's saying in relationship to the seed of Abraham. No, it's not just to us who have received the Torah, but Abraham's faith, Emunah, in his witness, was to him who looked for a city whose had foundation, whose builder and maker was Elohiym, and he never got it. But he believed it until the end, right? Who believed that he would be the father of many nations, and all he ever saw was Yitzhak. I mean, and the children that he had from the two other women that he had seed from, right? But he knew that the promised seed was the seed that believed in Emunah, right? Who had been chosen as Yahuwah's people, Yaakov. They are the seed. But there are others that identify in Emunah as Avraham did before he became circumcised and had established this a covenant with a people, with a tribe that Shaul is saying that is the same as Abraham's seed before he was circumcised, the Gentiles. Now somebody said, oh, that's a stretch, but that's just the way it is. That's the way Paul broke it down, right? The way he broke it down. The element of being the seed is due to the fact that they believe Yahuah, right? It's not that they're the seed because they are of the tribes, but they're the seed because, like Abraham had received the promise before he ever had a seed, right? He believed Yahuah, they believed Yahuah, never having had a promise or a Torah. So it's not necessarily a literal seed, but it's after the similitude of Abraham. book of Jubilees, verse 20. And he said unto us, behold, I will separate unto myself, right, a people, a seed, from amongst all the Gentiles, peoples, right? And these shall guard my Shabbat. We were to guard the Shabbat, right? I will sanctify them. I will sanctify them unto myself as my people, and I will bless them. Avraham's seed, right? Now, Avraham had a seed according to the flesh. This is not suggesting that Avraham seed that was according to the flesh has ceased to exist. No, they are more blessed. They are blessed in every way. They have advantage. As I have sanctified the Shabbats and do sanctify unto sanctify it unto myself, even so will I also bless them. I will also bless them, and they shall be my people, Abraham's seed, right? According to the promise, a seed, right? They shall be my people, and I will be their Elohiym. He says, I have chosen the seed of Yaakov, the 12 tribes, right? From among all that I have seen and have written them down. I have chose them. I have chose them. I have chose them. He says, I have chosen the seed of Yaakov from among all that I have seen, and have written him down as my firstborn son, and have sanctified him unto myself forevermore, and I will teach him my shot. Now listen, understand something, right? Because I'm gonna go somewhere. I'm gonna show you something, right? The idea is that we are the seed of Yahuah, the son that he has chosen, the firstborn, right? From amongst the people, right? We were chosen of Yahuah. Right? We was his firstborn sons. Yahusha is his only begotten, who became the mediator between us and Elohiym. Right? Because he was restoring a people to Elohiym. Right? But not just us, but the world. Right? Or those who are in the world, in the nation, right? That would become sons, right? Now let's look at something here. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it real quick, and hopefully, I'm gonna go through it. I'm gonna go to this idea again, right? Because the Ruach just gave it to me, right? Now. Let's look at this. Ephesians 1, right? Ephesians 1 and 13. Paul is talking to the church at Ephesus, right? And the church of Ephesus is a Gentile assemblies. Assemblies in Ephesus is a Gentiles assembly. But they've received the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. Now listen to this. Listen. In whom after you trusted, you believed, you had Emunah, right? We talking about Emunah in Romans, because in Romans he says in that 16th verse, for it is by faith that it might be by grace, that to the end the promise might be sure to all the seed, right? Might be to all the seed, not to that only which is of the law, right? Of the nation, of the covenant that Yahuah had made with his firstborn, right? His firstborn son. His firstborn son, Yaakov, right? But to also that which is of the faith of Avraham, right? Those who believed Yahuah in Emunah, right? Who believed like Avraham believed before he was circumcised. Because the promise came to Avraham before he was circumcised, but Yahuah still called out the people, Yaakov, right? Right? Now, he says, of the faith of Avraham is as the father of us all. The father of us all. He says, therefore it is of faith that it might be by grace to the end the promise might be sure to all the seed, not to that only which is of the Torah, right? But to that which is also of faith in Avraham, who is the father of us all who believe. He's the father of us all who believe. Now, he's our father because he's our patriarch. He is our father because of our ancestry, right? He is our father because of our ancestry, but the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach supersedes that, but we are still his children, right? But we are the Yaakov that he has called and established because we have received the witness, right? Because you have to, it's more than the law. It is the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. It's more than circumcision. Though circumcision established us as a people, right? He says, but to that also which is of the faith of Avraham, right? Who is the father of us all. Father of us all who believe. Avraham's witness has everything to do with belief. Right? Yes, listen. And you know, you got those bruises saying, man, why are you trying to give our heritage over to the Gentiles? I ain't gave nothing over. I've established time and time again that Yaakov is Yahuwah's firstborn. But Yahuwah still has sheep that are not of this fold. Those two must he bring in. Avraham is the father of us all who have Emunah in the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, who believe. Avraham has a seed. Yaakov is identified as Yahuwah's firstborn. But listen, you know what? Understand this. Where is that? Ephesians. Talking to the Gentiles. In whom ye also trusted that after you heard the word of truth. You heard the Torah, the Besorah of truth. The Besorah of your Yeshua. You received the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach. And whom also after that you believed, right? Like Avraham and Emunah, being secure, firmly fitted in, right? You believed, right? You were sealed with the Ruach HaKodesh of promise, the earnest of your inheritance unto the redemption of the purchased possession unto the praise of the glory. Now, this is what the Gentiles are experiencing, but we are partakers of this as well, only because we are the sons of Yahuwah, the Yaakov, the firstborn, and we have received the same thing. He says, Wherefore I also, after I heard of your faith, your Emunah, right? The same faith that Avraham had, right? Who believed and received the promise, right? He says, listen. And let's go back to the 13th verse, on whom ye also trusted, right? Trusted what? The Torah of truth. Trusted and heard the Besorah of truth, the word of truth, the Torah of truth. The Besorah, the witness, the word of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, Yah salvation, right? And whom also after that ye believed, you released your stead, firmness, secure, fixed faith, were sealed with the Ruach HaKodesh of promise. Of promise. You were sealed with the same promise that we received in Avraham. That promise that caused Avraham to stagger not. The promise of Yahuah through unbelief. The promise that he would be the heir of Yeshua. The Gentiles received this same promise. We are Yahudim. We are the children of Yahuah. We are Yaakov. We are established as his if we continue in this witness. That's why Yahuah has a remnant. Yahuah has a remnant. A remnant that's going to receive this witness. You got to have Emunah for this. Because if you don't have the Emunah, you ain't going to receive it. And if you don't receive it, you're gonna be lost. You're gonna be a liar. You're gonna prove Yahuwah's word to be true, and you a liar. And the wrath is revealed against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. Listen. We are the sons of Elohiym because we've received this witness. The Gentiles just received the same promise. Didn't I just not read it? Right? They received the promise. It's the earnest of their inheritance. They didn't have no inheritance before this. Before the witness. Before they received the witness. They didn't have no inheritance. The only way to the inheritance is applying the same faith that Avraham applied to this witness. And then you become a father of Avraham, not because necessarily you're the seed of Avraham, but because you have the same belief that Avraham had in the promise. Listen, it's about the promise. It's about the belief in the promise that establishes them as the seeds of Avraham, even as Gentiles. But this is the same thing for us. It's the same thing for us. He said, Ephesians 1:15, wherefore I also, after I heard of your Emunah in Adonai Yahusha. Excuse me, because you have to have faith in the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach and Adonai Yahusha. You got to be established in the witness of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, right? In order to be Avraham's seed. He says, when I heard of your Emunah and the love that you have for all the saints, Hebrew and Gentiles, I cease not to make mention of you in my prayers, right? That the Elohiym of Adonai Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, the Father of glory, may give unto you the Ruach of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of him, the Ruach HaKodesh of wisdom, the Ruach HaKodesh of understanding, the Ruach HaKodesh of knowledge, the Ruach of Yahuah. That the eyes of your understanding may be enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of your calling, what the riches of glory of your inheritance, that you may understand what this thing is. And with the exceeding greatnesses of his power to usward who believe, according to the working of his mighty power, which he wrought when he raised Yahusha Ha'Mashiach from the dead and sat him at his own right hand in heavenly places. It's what Yahuah said, what Dawid said concerning Yahusha when he says, Adonai, Yahuah, said unto Yahusha, sit thou on my right hand till I make thine enemies thy footstool. He said, which he wrought when he raised Yahusha Ha'Mashiach from the dead and sat him at his own right hand in the heavenly places, far above principalities and powers and dominions, and every name that is named not only in this world, but in the world to come, and having put all things under his feet, and gave him to be the head over all things to the assemblies, which is body, the fullness of all, which is the fullness of him that filleth all in all, right? And then he says, and you have he made alive who were dead in your trespasses and sins, Gentiles. In times past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the Ruach, that now worketh in the children of disobedience, among whom also ye had your conversations in times past, fulfilling the lust of the flesh and fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, even as everybody else. But Yahuah, who was rich in his great mercy and his love for which he loved us, look, even when we were dead in our trespasses and sin, together quickened us together with, even when we were dead in sin, hath quickened us together with Yahuah. You notice Shaul is talking about himself. And he's talking to the Gentiles. He's saying the same thing to the Gentiles as he's saying to himself. Right, because now, right, we are all of Avraham seed because we believe the witness. See, it's not being Abraham's seed because you are a descendant of the nation. But it's Abraham's seed because you received the witness in Emunah, right? It's Abraham's seed because you've been grafted in, right? It's because you have been made partakers of Yahuwah's Yeshua. Listen. Therefore, it is of the faith that it might be of grace. It's not of the law. It's got to be of grace. It's got to be of faith. It's got to be of Emunah, right? That it might be of grace. That it has to be this way, right? To the end. The promise might be sure, right? See, the promise has to be by Emunah because Yahuah gave it to Avraham in Emunah, and in order to receive it, it has to be in Emunah. It can't be because you keep the law, because you ain't going to be able to keep the law. You're going to always need a sacrifice. You're going to always need something to cover your sins. So it had to be greater than that. So Yahuah established an order of priesthood after the order of Melchizedek, which satisfied the whole priest ordinance that had to be amended, right? That had to be amended because it was going to decay and it was going to fade away, and that there had to be an Emunah in this sacrifice, in this high priest, this Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, Yahuwah's salvation, who was the Word made flesh. There was the Torah made flesh, and he was full of grace and truth, and everything he said was the Torah, was his Father's word. He only said what the Father gave him to say, right? And when it came down to it, he told him, listen, you're going to have to receive this witness. You're going to have to obey this word. You're going to have to keep this. And you're going to show me you love me by doing it. But you know what? I'm not going to leave you comfortless. I'm going to give you, the Father going to send you the Ruach HaKodesh. But first thing is first. I have to die. I have to die. I have to go into Sheol. I got to establish the everlasting dominion in the Eretz. I got to take the keys of hell and death. Then I can go up into the ROMAIYM as a lamb without spot or blemish. I can take my blood and go into the tabernacles of the Most High, most holy of holies tabernacles, where everything is a pattern of, but this is the real deal. This is the original, and I am the high priest after the order of Melchizedek, because my Father has sworn and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, and I can go up into this to the holies of holies, because I am a worthy high priest, and Yahuah, the Father of glory, is going to meet me there. And when I get there, I am going to sprinkle my blood, and he's going to be pleased, and he's going to give you the Ruach HaKodesh, which is extremely important for you, because the Ruach HaKodesh is the me and the Father in you. It's going to give you the capacity to love. It's going to give you the capacity to understand. It's going to give you the capacity to keep the Torah. It's going to give you what you need to get the job done, to reach your brethren with the witness of Yahusha, to reach the Gentiles with the witness of Yahusha, in the hopes that I will have subjects for the kingdom that will be established, so that when I come and the Shamayim comes and the kingdom comes and everything gets restored back to its order, its Shabbats, its seasons, its day, because the king has come to reign. Listen, you're going to reign with me, because you received this witness. Man of Yah, woman of Yah. We're going to stop here. You got to understand. This witness is an Emunah witness. You got to receive this witness in Emunah. You got to receive this witness in Emunah. And it's not nothing to do with it. It's nothing to do with Torah. It has everything to do with the Torah. But the Torah in and of itself cannot redeem you. You got to have faith. You have to have the belief. Listen. I did that. I didn't mean to do that. The people of the broadcasters went down. The word of Yahuah has gone forth. Got to receive this witness. We're listening to none other than Yahusha. Yash Rahaka. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's by Hezekiah. I don't know who writes this music. You got to understand that this thing, that this witness that we've received, this life that we have, Yahuah is going to hold us to it. And the only way we're going to receive anything from Yahuah is through Emunah. Yahuah, I pray right now in the name of Yahusha Ha'Mashiach, the word that you've given me to give to them, that they would keep it. They would receive it in Emunah, that it will come alive in them, and it will quicken them. Yahuah, I pray that your word would have the preeminence in their lives. I pray that the word would have preeminence in their lives. I pray that the word would have preeminence in their lives. Yahuah, that you would continue to lead and guide them, Yahuah. You lead and guide them into our truth. Yahuah, I give you praise. I give you praise. I give you praise. I give you praise. Yahuah, let the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Yahuah, my strength and my redeemer. Listen, man of Yah, woman of Yah, that's all we got. We're bringing it to a close. With that, I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Listen, walk in the witness. Walk in the witness. Obey the Torah of truth, because you can. Because the dew is in you. You sons and daughters of Yahuah. You've called, Hebrew and Gentile alike. You've received the witness. You were called. I pray that you would receive this word, Emunah. With that I say, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Going out with my man Hezekiah. I don't want to write to this music. With that I say again, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Be blessed.
Torah Garden, speaking the absolute truth. Torah Nation.